Hello there, Sir from 17 once again. This is Doom Eternal. This is the second DLC, the Ancient Gods Part 2, and we are playing the first mission of it, the World Spear, on Nightmare, at 239 frames per second. And you might wonder, as I check my weapons at the beginning here, what does that have to do with anything? Well, if you know anything about Doom Eternal, guys, the higher your frame rate, the more squirrely the game gets, and I've actually capped it at the refresh rate of my monitor, and I've done that because I've played this game at 400 and 600 FPS, and weird things start to happen. And the first thing you'll see in the video here that's kind of goofy is that the beginning of this DLC for some reason has weird optimization errors for me, so I get these weird stutters like the game is loading in things, and I don't know why it happens. I'm not entirely certain as to why. The game runs pretty damn good for the most, but for some reason when I first pop it on, it might be caching something, and it definitely suffers. But you might be wondering, Doom Eternal, Chris, isn't it a year late, and isn't it not in sequence? And you would be absolutely correct in thinking that. I have an interesting storied history with this game. I would have really liked to have covered it sooner, but I'm glad that I didn't, because it enabled me to actually understand and appreciate the game a lot better as we do this introductory platforming sequence. And what's going to happen, guys, is we're going to do Tag 2 on Nightmare, all Escalations, which is what you're watching right now. We're going to do the Ancient Gods Part 1. It's going to be the same on Nightmare, and I'm going to do whatever's in that. And then I'm going to do the base game, All Slayer Gates Nightmare. And then after that, if I can get it to work, which at the moment I'm having problems with, I'm going to do the base game on Nightmare as well. And we'll come full circle, but we'll do so backwards. And it's such an interesting and compelling game, this, but I don't want to get into any of the big meat of the discussion in the DLC, because the DLC is condensed gameplay. It's all violence, it's all fights, it's all interesting combat puzzles, and you start with all your equipment. There's no progression. They are understanding at this moment that you know what you're doing. They are expecting you to know what you're using, and then they're going to put you into these situations that demand that you use everything and rip and tear until all is dead. And if you look at the bottom left, you might notice that I have my inputs on the screen here, which I thought would make this a little bit more interesting for people to watch. So you can see what my hand is doing, and for anybody that's thinking about learning mouse and keyboard, or moving to PC, or even putting one on a console, because they're getting a bit better at that now, if you've ever thought of a good game to help teach you your keyboard hand on mouse and keyboard, this is the game. This game is incredibly intensive on your left hand. It's kind of insane, and I'm getting better at it, but I'm still pretty much garbage. I've only beat the game once on Ultra Violence, and I've beat the DLC on Ultra Violence, and then I've beat this one on Nightmare now. And I was saving Nightmare for the recording so that I could say that it was my first go-through of it, so that you could get my raw experience to the hardest difficulty in the game if you don't count permadeath. And it's led to some interesting results. The first one is me really wanting to re-record things because they didn't go the way I wanted them to, but I still managed to survive. But if you've seen any of my walkthroughs in the past, you'll understand that I'm a big fan of leaving them honest if I can. I want you to see the moments where I play well. I want you to see the moments where I don't play well. I want to show you a variety of gameplay, and I think Doom Eternal is perfect for this, because there are moments in this game where my brain just turns off. There's so much going on, there are so many things to be doing at all times, and there's so many tools and so much creativity that there are just moments where I don't have the experience and the muscle memory to do the right things the right way, in the way the game demands it. And that's okay, you know. This is a game about mastery, this is a game about practice, this is a game about creativity, and the more you play, the more confident you get, and the more interesting your gameplay becomes. And I've tried my best here, guys, with my limited experience, to make the gameplay as interesting as I could make it. But you will see flaws, you will see errors and issues and moments where I don't do things I should do, and hopefully it adds a little bit of flair and character to the videos as we take on this sequence here, which, once this shroud of fog turns up, if you stand in it, it damages your HP. But it's not the end of the world. You just want to be mobile as best as you can, swap between your weapons, and deal as much damage as physically possible. But the thing to know about the Ancient Gods Part 2, if you've been keeping up with the games, it is not as difficult as the first DLC was. The first DLC was a roadblock of pure adrenaline difficulty, condensed into nothing but gauntlets and gauntlets and gauntlets, and it was such an interesting tempo and tone compared to the main game. It really did blast you the whole time. And if you're able to do that and keep up with that and you enjoyed that pace, then this DLC will oftentimes feel a little bit breezy. And there's only a couple of fights that might even give you the trouble that you're looking for. But here is one of the new enemies. We saw the Screecher before, which I'll talk about later on. But this is the Armoured Baron. So the Baron of Hell has now got an upgrade. And the upgraded part of him is his armour, which can be weakened by using the energy weapons. So you can use this plasma tool here to get rid of his armour, or you can wait for him to do his swing where he glows that weird bomb on his arm, that mace. And if you shoot it with precision bolt or ballista or something powerful, it will blow his armour off and result in making him vulnerable. And the Armoured Baron is kind of interesting. He makes the Baron a bit denser than he usually was. But my big criticism with it, which you're going to hear a decent amount of criticisms, because I love Doom Eternal. I think it's one of the most essential video games that's come out in the last 10 years. And the main walkthrough will have me telling you exactly why, as we have a lot more downtime in that project. But I think the Armoured Baron, I don't understand why you can't just shoot the ball in his hand at any moment. You know, the whole time he's moving around, he's making the ball hard to hit. And if you hit that, you should be rewarded. That's how he should work. But instead, that doesn't mean anything. I was getting those weird stutters here, guys, so I had to turn some things down. So if you want to pause this and see what my settings are, I dropped a bunch of the texture stuff to make the game look a little less beautiful, but make it hopefully a bit more static. I'm running a 3080, so the horsepower of my machine it's pretty damn fine, and I don't see any issues when I'm not capturing, but when I'm capturing on one PC, you're going to see, you know, differences, so I tweaked that and hopefully that goes away, and the game still looks wonderful and plays sublime. But did you see it just then? That was the Baron's weak point. He does a very overly dramatized pose where you can shoot it and it will get rid of it, and I think that window is so wide and so effortless. The only reason it's even remotely difficult as an enemy is because he only does it at a certain time, and if he does other things he's not doing it, you know, so you don't have to worry about it. But I feel like the skill check on the Baron would be way more interesting if you could shoot it at any time and he didn't stand there and go, "Oi dickhead, shoot my thing," because it's just kind of odd. And a couple of times you'll see the detection on it be a bit weird. I have footage on Imora where I shoot his weak point with precision bolt spot on and it doesn't detonate it and he punches me in the face. So just be careful with that. But he's new and he's welcome, because the enemies in this game are so interesting because they all perform a role. And each of those roles affects the combat flow in a different and unique manner. And you'll notice at the moment I'm using the race car hood, as they call it, which they put in this DLC, which shows your chainsaw and your fuel and your blood punch in the middle of the screen near the reticle. But to be completely honest, guys, I don't even see it. My resource management in this game is completely amateur and nowhere near where it needs to be. So you'll notice that I throw out a lot of punches when I don't have blood punches. Sometimes my brain's just like, maybe it's come back, even though it hasn't, and I just punch. And then there are times when I try to chainsaw and I don't have the chainsaw because I'm so used to doing certain things in certain moments, and that's the type of thing that will change when I get a bit more comfortable, bit more comfortability with the game. The meat hook though, oh my goodness, so much to talk about in so little time. The meat hook is one of the reasons why I like this DLC as much as I do, because it's had a lot of criticism from the Doom fans, and some say it's too easy, some say it's too hard. I suppose you can't really win, can you? But the emphasis on enabling you to use the meat hook quite a lot is a really nice touch, because it enables you to be mobile. And there are a couple of moments where the meat hook kind of fails you and it won't detect correctly and you can get fucked for it, but fundamentally it's not too bad and it leads to a lot of really fun moments. The runes that I'm using, for anybody that didn't see at the beginning of the video, I use the rune to do glory kills at a longer distance, I use quicker glory kills, and I use the aerial mobility rune. And I pretty much think the game is unplayable when I don't have those on, which is kind of frustrating when you start a new game. But when it comes to playing in the DLCs, because you have everything, you just feel really capable, really strong, and the whole thing is just super fun. And then this first level here with this theme that's playing in the background that reminds me of They Live by John Carpenter. This place is so green and verdant, and It's almost something out of a fantasy novel, isn't it? It's so fantastical in what it does as I fuck up the platforming like a true peon. But if you've never played Doom Eternal, guys, and you're watching this and it doesn't make any sense and you're very confused, it doesn't seem a lot like Doom, this game definitely does have a lot of Quake's DNA in the direction that they've taken. But the more you play it, the more you realise it really is a love affair to classic Doom, but it's bringing it into a more modern pantheon. And this right here is an option in the menu to have empowered demons. You can turn this off if you don't want the added challenge, but every so often the game can populate with a particularly powered up zombie or monster or whatever it might be. They're more durable, they seem to be harder to stun, they seem to have more HP, and when you kill them they give you more resources. And they are random, so they just kind of turn up and sometimes they don't. You might not see any on your run, or you might. And that guy there is very consistent. I've seen that Revenant 3 times when I've played this level, I think. So he turns up quite a lot. But Doom Eternal, fundamentally, for people who don't know anything about it, is about using your resources to overcome these encounters, these groups of monsters. And the basic 3 principles of the resources are that you have a flamethrower that when you set people on fire and hurt them, it will make them drop armor. You have a glory kill mechanic where when you stun an enemy and they glow a wonderful colour, you can go up to them and do an execution which will make them drop HP. And then when you're running out of tools to do those 2 things I just mentioned while killing the enemies, you have a chainsaw. And the chainsaw will refill all of those things I pretty much just mentioned if you do it in certain ways. So there are techniques to give you armor when you chainsaw, techniques to give you HP when you chainsaw, and essentially you're getting ammo back when you do it. And what this does is it leads you into... There are certain beats you have to hit while you play. You have to kill the enemies, you have to stay alive, you have to manage those resources, and how you do that is entirely up to you. So right here I take on this guy using the Frostbomb to freeze him to get the damage buff, and then I proceed to do some high damage weapon swaps just to give him some nice DPS. And I'm trying my best here not to get pinched against the wall, because this is a pretty claustrophobic fight, and this enemy has been powered up by the Screecher, so I have to be real careful of him as well. And I do apologise, guys, I did not take into account that the HUD would stretch when I picked up that toxic suit thing, so my inputs are now covering my dash respawn, and I didn't realise it was happening at the time, and it pissed me off in the recording because when I looked back I was kind of triggered. But because I said I did not want to, you know, re-record this a bunch of times and get the sexiest gameplay I could, I wanted it to be honest and genuine, I've simply left it in as much as it pains me. And like just now, you know, I've also left in moments where I'm doing the platforming badly, so this is not going to be a perfect run, guys. It's meant to inspire more than anything else. And I'm using the Destroyer Blade here, but the trigger for this enemy is the armor in this room, so if you don't pick that up he doesn't turn up. And I wanted to hit him with a wonderful hit, but ended up hitting him with a super shotgun and setting off the canisters and getting rid of him. More platforming as we push forward into some meat hook platforming. And then when you step on here, there's a bunch of cacodemons that attack you, but you don't have to mess with them. And this is really good practice for figuring out and being comfortable with the air dodging and with the swinging around. And unfortunately I did die coming up here. Not even close to being one of the more difficult fights, but just goes to show, doesn't it? This game escalates really quickly, and if you do things incorrectly you die. And this is actually one of the easier fights. It's just this central area. It introduces a mechanic known as purple goo. And you might have noticed from the gameplay that this is a pretty fast game. This game moves at a decent pace, and it's the reason I love it. However, when you step in this goo, it slows you down, and I can see the appeal of the combat puzzle of it, and I understand the logistics of why somebody would like the idea of it, but I think it contradicts the core tenets of the game, and I just don't see a place for it. There are modders that have actively gone into the source of the game and removed the slowing property of the goo, and I think that just makes it better. And I appreciate that that's not for everybody, but anything that slows you down in video games is something I will always dislike. And I appreciate that it is a punishment. It's meant to do that to give you something interesting to overcome, as I play this in a very interesting manner. Very risky right now, taking lots of damage, but luckily there's some fodder enemies to give me some stuff back. But I really don't understand the purple goo personally. I think it's terrible. I'm not going to complain about it the whole video because it doesn't show off enough, but I just think as far as a mechanic goes, just because you can have something doesn't mean you should. And I love the idea of constantly bringing in new features, constantly updating the problems and the problem solving of the player. But there are things that sometimes you miss and sometimes you hit, and the purple goo for me is a miss. But here's a fight against a bunch of armoured mancubus guys and some standard fodder. There is a lot of these enemies, and these enemies are pretty durable. The big weakness on these bad boys is the blood punch. I'm going to charge the destroyer blade here because I'm trying to use it more. I'm in a bit of a crisis when it comes to keybinds. I don't like my binds. They've enabled me to play the game at a decent level, but if I want to improve, I have to change it. This got really, really hairy too. Tried to flame belch then before I chainsawed him, but I didn't have it because I'm not playing very well. But luckily, this game can turn on a dime, and hopefully I'm going to pull it back and show these guys what playing Doom Eternal's all about. Super shotgun, ballista, doing incredible damage, glory killing. It's a thing of beauty. If you're struggling with this fight, there is a power-up in the middle, but I'm going to be avoiding the power-ups intentionally. I'm at that point where if I want to improve, I don't want to rely on things that essentially change the nature of the game. And I suppose that leads me to talking about the walkthrough, doesn't it? I can't teach you how to play this game, guys, and I can't really walk you through it. I can show you myself playing it and beating it and hopefully inspire you, but I can't give you a walkthrough for this because it's too complicated and it's too personal. Doom Eternal it's such a special game that you have to figure it out and you have to learn it yourself, and at first it's hard because you don't get it, and you think you get it but you don't get it. You're not quite there with the concepts. You're missing out on fundamentals that once are understood change how you view the game. This is a tough fight, by the way. Very long gauntlet here. Very fun though, and you now have the hammer, which is game-breakingly strong if you use it correctly. And I'm not going to use it correctly because I know how to use it, I know what I should be doing, and I just forget. I'm a noob, let me off. But once you start to click with the game and you understand what it's asking of you, it changes how you view it, and you really do find the place that the director of the game calls the fun zone. And it's like anything else. If I can share these videos and make somebody go, wow, this looks interesting, I want to try this, I think this could be fun, and you pick it up and you put the time in and it works for you, then I've done my job. Because as much as I'd like to say, guys, here's the most powerful things in the game. You want a quick swap between precision bolt and ballista and wreck things, you know? You want a quick swap between ballista, rocket launcher, super shotgun and wreck things. And you want to hit somebody with a freeze bomb, set them on fire, blood punch them, and then weapon swap until they die. I can tell you these things and they will help. You know, I could tell you to just meat-hook around and use the lock-on rocket launcher, which absolutely dumpsters people. And then meat hook and chainsaw to get your armor back and ammo and do things like that. I can give you these things, but giving you them doesn't help you. You know, it would be like me giving you a fishing rod, but not teaching you how to fish, you know? And the problem with this is, Doom in itself is a teacher, and the fights in themselves are a teacher. So the more you play, the more you get the impression of what they want you to do. And then once it starts to click, you expand on your ability to do what they want you to do, and it stops being a game where you only use the shotgun and the rocket launcher and that's all you use. And then you start putting this in and start putting that in, and it shifts and it adapts and it adjusts. And you start to realise that, you know, I can flame belch on an enemy before I do all these things that I'm already doing, and the whole time I'm doing it, I'm going to get resources for that will keep me alive. And then I realise that when I'm about to get trapped in a corner, that one of those enemies in front of me that's blocking me is fodder, and if I use the chainsaw I can just zoom through them and hit him and get an opening, and you start to look at the game in a vastly different manner. And even looking at this gameplay right now, guys, you can tell what kind of player I am, because I don't put the chain gun on very often, even though the chain gun's shield is incredibly powerful and can falter when you dash. It's really good for taking no damage, and it does super good damage on standard enemies. You notice that I don't put the plasma gun on that much, even though it has a secondary function that can literally paralyze an enemy and let you dumpster it. You'll notice that I don't really swap to the standard shotgun, even though you can spam the grenades on that shotgun and it's really, really powerful. These are all things that I'm working on, that I have to adjust and I have to put into my rhythms and my habits. And I started the game using micro missiles all the time and never touching precision bolt. and I didn't understand when to use the chainsaw or what the point was. Like, I started the game like many people probably did, where I was just doing the same two things and not really understanding it, but thinking that I did. And then, of course, over time, you come to realise that they all have uses and tools, and then hopefully once you get to the point where you're using everything, you'll be swapping mods mid-fight, swapping grenades, you'll be doing everything that's expected of you. And that's when the game gets just really, really, really fun and really addictive, because you'll do a fight, and then you'll do something like I did just then, where I went for a blood punch and I didn't have it, and then you'll feel kind of bad for it, because you should have known better, because you want your awareness to be higher. You want to be in tuned and knowledgeable of what's happening while it's happening. But it's all happening so fast, it doesn't come overnight, it takes time. And once again, this leads into the idea that I can't teach you how to play this game, guys, just by a simple video and a simple commentary. I can give you tips, and I can give you advice, and I can guide by inspiration, hopefully. But I cannot give you what you need to discover yourself. And that's why I think this game is so good, and one of the reasons I find it to be just so refreshing and so wonderful in many ways is because it's a game that does not concede. It's a game that does not patronise. It's a game that demands that you do. It demands you play it on a base level, but that base level gives you all the choice you could ever want. And when the game first came out, there was a lot of criticisms of it being like a one-trick pony, of you do the same loops and the same patterns, and I feel like that is the myopia of the player. If you're doing the same patterns and you're bored, you need to do different patterns. You need to change what you're doing. The point here is that you are constantly trying to express yourself in the medium of combat, and creating your own niche and carving your own path through this battle. And admittedly, there's only so many permutations of what that can turn into, but when you look at all the tools you have, all the mods you have, all the combinations to add them together with the flexibility and the precision of the controls, there really is not a good argument for this game being a one-trick pony and repetitive and boring. If this game is repetitive and boring, I hate to say it, dog, but it's you. And that's just the truth. But the enemy I was just fighting there is a new addition to the roster. They're known as stone imps, and you'll see the capture shitting the bed a little bit here, guys. Every so often I get encoding errors, and luckily with this game it doesn't seem to do it during some of the bigger fights, and I'm really happy about that, because I don't want to lose the gameplay, because I had a lot of fun recording it and I want to share it with you guys. This is a really cool fight, this one as well. I don't think I do it too well, but it is pretty cool. And we get another empowered demon immediately, who... The Revenants are interesting. There's a couple of invisible pinkies here too. Like... Oh, I should probably talk about the hammer, seeing as how we've just got it, and I mentioned it was the most broken thing, and you're probably wondering, Chris, how is it the most broken thing? So the hammer, ladies and gentlemen, is a melee weapon that stuns pretty much everything around you and does a heavy dose of damage too. I thought it was just a stun when I first got it, but it actually does a lot of damage. It can really hurt enemies if you do it the right way. And what happens is it's an area of effect stun that will get you out of a pinch, get you out of a bad situation. But the problem is it's too good. It stuns everything. The only thing that it doesn't stun, I think, is possessed demons and a marauder if he shields it, which he almost certainly will if you don't set it up. So it leads to, you have this panic button that is incredibly strong. And when you combine it with Flame Belch and the Ice Grenade, you can get so many resources back with it, it's kind of insane. And the reason why it's so strong is you get a recharge on every 2 glory kills or 2 weak point breaks. So just then I took the Arachnotron's turret, just then I took his turret, I now have my hammer back. And all I did was shoot 2 spiders. 2 metal spiders got shot and I have it back. And I just used it and I've got half of it back because I did a glory kill. So if I was better at this game... Oh, this right now, this is interesting. So did you notice how you could hear the game just then? But it looked like it paused on the capture. I did not pause then, guys. My game did this weird thing where my character was sidestepping and it wouldn't read my inputs and the game continued playing like normal. So it looks like I paused just then. I absolutely didn't. My game glitched. I was side strafing. It wouldn't do anything. I pressed escape and it gave me control back. And I left that in because I didn't want you to think I was doing some funny messing around with the editing. Like, my editing's meant to make the viewing experience better. It's not meant to hide things. It's not meant to give delusions of grandeur or show that I'm the best thing in the world, because I'm not. You know, if I die, I'm going to tell you. You know, if something weird happens, I'm also going to tell you. But fundamentally, the hammer comes back really quickly if you do the right things, and it's so good, and it stuns, and it does damage that you can pretty much loop everything. And if you know how to hit weak points, if you know how to set up glory kills on fodder, you'll have a hammer at will. And a tool that strong probably needs balancing. And if they do put it in the main game, and they put it in tag 1, I really hope that they do that. I don't want it to stay the way it is. And it seems like Hugo said, the director of the game, if you're wondering, Hugo Martin, he said that he wanted this DLC to feel like a reward for all of the suffering that you've put yourself through to get to the end. And he cited movies as a reference. He cited how the hero at the end of the movie gets to have the Jean-Claude Van Damme Natsukao moment, where he gets to do the big comeback, and all he had to do was cut the ropes off his hands, and now he's kicking Tong Po's ass. He wanted us to feel like we were being rewarded for what we'd endured, and I respect the hell out of that. You can't make a game that is brutal for the sake of brutality, because only the top 1% of the players will enjoy it. You need your game to appeal to everybody. The people who are on the lower end of the skill ceiling, they want to have fun, they want to kick ass, you know? So you need to have that experience in there somewhere, and I think they do a good job of compromising and trying to make a middle ground between the truly elite players and the scrubs. And once again, this is more capturing coding errors, and hopefully that's on my preview screen and not on your video, and if it is on your video, sorry about that. This is a cool fight. So I didn't realise that you could shoot through these walls that they pin you in with. So if you're wondering why I'm not shooting the enemies when they're all grouped up, it's because I thought I'd hit the wall and kill myself. And I don't do a very good job here doing this fight. You'll also notice that I use the lock-on rocket with the rocket launcher, but I never actually do it. And don't worry folks, that has nothing to do with pretension or elitism. I'm not one of those people that's going to shame you for using lock-ons. I think they're awesome, I just completely forget. I get so busy trying to weapon swap, and I do a bad job at it, that I just fumble around like an idiot and forget my tools. But here is the escalation. And I need to talk about this because these are hard. This is the second escalation coming up after this, is probably the hardest fight in the DLC for me personally. And it's the only fight where I'm going to use the BFG. And it's kind of weird how this works, so you've probably already formed an opinion of my ability in Doom Eternal by watching what I've done here. You either think I'm okay at the game, you think I'm good, or you think I'm bad. I'm at that point where I know I'm decent, but I want to be better. And being better takes time and practice. So I put this game on before I recorded this walkthrough, and I was playing this level on Nightmare just to kind of refresh myself and level up a little bit before I did the recording. And I did this, the second escalation on Nightmare here on my first attempt, no BFG. And I sound like one of those guys that has all the sex on holiday but has no evidence or pictures to prove it because he's full of shit and you know he's lying. And I sound like that guy. I hate to be that guy in this moment, telling you this story, because I don't know why I didn't record. It was such a clutch victory, and it gets really, really crazy, the second one. And it took me like 15 minutes to do it, which is not a good time at all. It was terrible, it was panicked, it was all kinds of butt clenching. But I did do it, and when I came to recording it, I got to this in particular escalation. This escalation, the first one, I think it killed me once or twice. I died on something lame, and I got tilted. And I don't know if you're like me, but when I play this game, I'm a very emotional player. If I'm feeling myself, I can do anything. The moment I start like second guessing myself and feeling like I'm playing bad, like right now, I'm playing fucking bad, I'm doing stupid things and it's getting me killed, I start to tilt a lot. And I'm not really one of those people in a lot of games that tilts that often. Like when I stream and stuff and I get angry and I'm silly and what have you, that's a bit different because it's a performance. But like when I play action games and Souls games and that, I don't really tilt. I choke, I'm a big choker, but I'm not a tilter. This game tilts me because I get disappointed with myself. I get disappointed with my ability and I should be better than I am. And that's what ended up happening when I failed this particular escalation. So when I came to recording it and I got to the second escalation, I died a couple times to some pretty rough, like, getting cornered and doing bad things. And I had that moment that I think every gamer gets where you kind of go, am I in the right mood right now to do this? And it was pretty late too. I was recording late, I was tired, I wanted to go to bed, but I wanted to finish the level because I was warmed up. So I had a few more attempts, I died a couple times. I think in the whole I died maybe 4 times. And then I said, this next attempt I'm going to use the BFG to clear the first wave. And then that was the successful run. And that's the one that you're going to see coming up in a moment. And I hope it's an enjoyable watch because it was definitely arduous at the time. This can be a very draining game with how intense it is, but it's what makes it so interesting too. And I hate that. I fucking hate Prowlers, dude. Prowlers need to be one chainsaw pip to kill. I don't know anyone who wants that enemy to ever take more than one gas tank. Prowlers literally exist to cockblock your chainsaw and lead you to a death you didn't even need, but you earned because of the way that the Prowlers work. Like, I don't think I've ever died to a Prowler, but the amount of times I've needed a chainsaw and they've cockblocked it and it's led to my desolation is way too high. And maybe that's the real purpose of them, is just to be that guy. But the escalations as a whole, mechanically, I think are kind of interesting. Because they're optional. The first one's mandatory and it gives you a hammer upgrade. The second one is harder and completely optional, but it gives you a cosmetic upgrade. And when you watch really good players do the escalations, they know where all the big enemies are and they go and gangbang them as they spawn and then it's over in 5 minutes. But my playstyle is nowhere near as learned as that, so I just kind of rotate and shoot stuff and I end up killing a lot more fodder than I need to, because I'm getting too carried away trying to kill fucking Prowlers with my chainsaw. Did you see that though? Of all the enemies to run into, I run into a Prowler. It's kind of telling, isn't it? They're so sneaky at doing exactly what they need to do to be a giant arsehole. I'm also trying to work in some different guns here, but there's no real need to do it. This is the end as well right now. So get as much armor as you can. Get as much armor, get your ammo back, and then the second one is going to begin. I think the biggest problem I have with the escalations, personally, is I don't like it that you have to touch the nest every time you want to activate them. That, to me, triggers the living shit out of me, because I want to fight, I want to spawn in, I want enemies to turn up, I don't want to touch things. And I know it's a slight thing, and I know it's a nuance. But here we go, I'm going to back up here, guys. There's going to be a bunch of Cacodemons spawning and 2 Pain Elementals. And I'm going to try to kind of kite them together, so when I fire the BFG into the sky, I'm going to take them out. So I do that, and then boom, we're going to play for normal. And then what happens is, when I get to the tyrant wave, after I think it's the double archviles, once the tyrants turn up and there's quite a big cluster of enemies, because I know that I'm on a decent run, I pull out the BFG again and I use it, because I felt in that moment, if I'm going to use it, I might as well go for it. Because my original intentions were to save all my BFG for the Dark Lord so I could make that fight quicker. But nothing makes that fight quicker, it's just complete garbage and shouldn't exist. And it's kind of a shame too, because I was hoping it was going to be closer to some kind of PvP encounter. They were going to make like a super good AI like a Zell from God Hand, and instead they made the Asylum Demon with no hands and no legs. And it's not as hard as the Asylum Demon. So I don't know what they were thinking personally. But I don't think it's any surprise to people. Id suffer when it comes to bosses. Doom 2016 had some interesting bosses that I kind of liked. Doom Eternal, I don't think the bosses are that great at all. I think they're pretty lacking, and I'm going to talk a lot about that as we cover more of the game. But right now there's a bunch of Cyber Mancubi and Normal Mancubi doing their thing. Mancubi and Mancubus, all kinds of man action going on here. And I quite like this wave, because this arena's pretty good for kind of getting away from them, grouping them up and then hitting them with a bunch of rockets and stuff. But I need my ammo back, so Flame Bells, Chainsaw, see what we can do. Couple guys over there, lots of fodder here. Get rid of that imp, boost back across, there he is, the guy we need to go for. Do the meat hook, put him down, get the armor back, and then see what the next spawn is. Next spawn is the Archvile, did you see him? So this enemy is real interesting. He likes to summon these flaming copies of enemies, and they turn into buffed, boosted versions, and I'm going to isolate him, freeze him, and then hit him with as many hard things as I can, because he needs to die. And then when he does die, the second Archvile spawns on the lower area in the back corner, and I need to go and focus him too. And if you see him building his shield like that, you have to shoot him to stop him. And right now, I think I forgot that there was two. Here he goes, he's down there. I'm going to shoot him, I'm going to hit him, I'm going to hammer him. Do I remember the hammer? There we go, hammer him. There's the stun from the hammer, the ridiculously powerful stun. This is me fucking up my bind, so I use the auto shotgun. It works out, very strong weapon. And that's both of those guys down, and now I think it's... Is it 2 Doom Hunters? I get my chainsaw here. 2 Doom Hunters and something else. So I freeze that guy, hit his sled with the blood punch, get him off that sled. And then a tyrant, there's the tyrant. So this might be where I use the BFG this, because I have a bit of a history with the Doom Hunter enemies. So it's 2 tyrants and 2 Doom Hunters. And it's not that bad really, but I'm going to use the BFG because I'm kind of tilted and panicked. And I do that, and the tyrants are bloody harmless, aren't they really? I should have killed the bloody Doom Hunter. Because if you don't know, guys, on high frame rate, the Doom Hunter moves really weird. If you see any kind of odd stuff going on with him, sliding around, slipping and boosting and teleporting and stuff, and you're watching it and you're going to yourself, I don't really know what's going on here. I don't either. They're not meant to do what they do when you bump the frame rate up. So it turns him into these like slippy, super speedy, teleporting nightmares. And right now he's doing normal things, he's being fine. It's when you get him on a slope, or when you get too close to certain areas, he does goofy shit. And it's getting a bit hectic, but not that bad. I'm really looking forward to coming back to this fight and confidently knowing what I'm doing in it. Once I've improved. But there we go, a couple of rockets down there to get rid of him. There's the imp. That guy's still got his sled. I want to freeze him if I can, but my ice grenade's not back. I got the sled, I set him on fire. Super shotgun, we got the chainsaw, the flame belch, the armor's spouting back in. He's there, boom. There he was, do you see him? Pop a rocket down. I'm trying to use the destroyer blade more, but I keep forgetting. There was my preemptive ice, there's the tyrant. Grenade down there. Whack that guy, hoping I've got a blood punch, but I don't. Boost away with the ballista. Couple weapon swaps. I'm going to meat hook towards this guy, get some armor back. Go through the teleporter, glory kill. One more glory kill for the hammer. I should just be getting the hammer here on the fodder and then coming down and crushing skulls, but I'm tilted, I'm panicked. There goes the tyrant. See you later, friend. He's dead. Or the cyber demon, depending on what game you know him from. And I think this is it, guys. I think we managed to do it. And it didn't seem too rough, did it? That's the weird thing about Doom Eternal. When you're in it, it feels rough. But when you're watching it back, you're like, well, that wasn't too bad at all, really, I guess. It's that intensity of being in the moment. That was odd. Didn't mean to hit that. But there you go. Second escalation is down. So I'm happy to report that that will be the last time you see the BFG. So in Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, I do not use the BFG at all. It's going to be all trying to use the tools that are at my disposal. But here we go, back with some more platforming. And I have to go out on a limb here and say the platforming in this DLC, I think it's the best platforming in the game. And it's mostly because it utilises the meat hook, which I think is a really cool mechanic. Instead of utilising randomly catching on walls and doing weird wall shit the whole time. But this fight here is really sweet. It's got a couple of barons, it's got some tentacles, and it's got this wonderful ambush coming up with the Cyber Mancubus and normal Mancubus. And because the weak point into hammer recharge is so strong, you can stun both the Cyber Mancubuses with the hammer and then get your hammer back. So this is going to give you free range to get in there and blood punch if you want to. I'm going to do some weapon swapping and some grenades because I'm trying to practice. I'm trying to get my hands around the game and understanding what I'm doing. And so if you take both of this guy's weak points, your hammer's back. And that right there was I went to do a blood punch and I fat fingered my chainsaw. So if you want to play the official Doom Eternal drinking game, whenever I blood punch and I don't have a blood punch, take a shot. Whenever I try to chainsaw and I don't have a chainsaw, or I don't hit a target because they take more pips on the chainsaw, also take a shot. And then by the end of my content, you will probably be dead. But I died on this fight coming up, and on my first playthrough, I didn't die here. I ended up getting hit by the Maker Angel creature guy, and he hurts, and I didn't realise how much he hurt, and he just, see you later. So go towards that doorway to trigger the fight. There's a bunch of prowlers and fodders, and then these guys spawn. And because they nerfed them, the window to hit them is really wide now. It takes forever for you to be able to shoot them. It didn't used to be like this. In the Ancient Gods Part 1, you had to really preempt that move, set it up, and then take them out. And they made it a lot less precise, which is probably a good thing in the end of the day. And this enemy, the only reason I don't like this enemy is because he slows you down. And I don't like anything that slows you down. But I think the Ancient Gods Part 1 is going to be really easy now. Because he was legitimately a threatening enemy, and every time he turned up you had to prioritise him, because if you didn't, he'd throw that javelin, and you'd be slowed, and then you were dead. Because in those days we didn't know what Cursed Prowlers were, so when it came to cancerous enemies that shouldn't exist, that should be deleted from the game files, and Hugo should be slapped in the face several times for even thinking they were even remotely close to being something that was fun, we used to complain about the Maker guy, right? Or I did at least, and I say we in the royal sense. This is kind of cheesy too. If this tentacle hits you, he does a nuclear amount of damage. I got hit by him on my wow. Dude, did you see the physics then? That was amazing. I don't know why that Arachnotron got that property just then. That was a fat-fingered hammer just then. Take a shot. But double Barons here and Arachnotron. Apparently the Barons have a weakness to fire. So if you set them on fire with Flame Belch or the Meat Hook, it's like a really good thing to hurt them and get them ticking. I thought that was kind of stupid, and I don't know if that's true. Because wouldn't a Baron of Hell, wouldn't he like fire? I mean, he lives in hell. Is it a cold day in hell? I don't know. And they've nerfed him as well, that Arachnotron monster. He is apparently one of the oldest AIs in the game. And because of his age, he doesn't quite work the way that the developers wish he worked. So they've gone back in and they've made him a bit more passive. He used to shoot you the whole time, constantly, me, like that. And it was really fast, really accurate, and really damaging. And they've kind of hit it too hard, I think. They've slowed it down. They've made him take breaks between bursts now. So his endurance is not as good. And he really isn't as big of a get rid of the turret immediately or face the consequence kind of enemy that he was before. And I don't really get that change. I think once again it's probably healthy for the lower ability level of Doom Eternal. Because I do think the Arachnotrons could be incredibly dangerous. But this is kind of that game, isn't it? This is a game where everything in it's dangerous if you let it do what it wants to do. Like, the whole point of Doom Eternal is play the game your way and make the enemies come to your way of thinking. Do not ever give up any momentum or ground to their needs and their wants, or you'll just die. And that's Doom Eternal. You are here to rip and tear. You're not here to be ripped and torn. But that is the first part of the DLC, guys. That was Mission 1. I hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you all on Mission 2, 3, and the shitty final boss. So thank you for watching, and you take care now.